Every day, you make decisions: what to buy, who to trust, what to believe. But here's the real question: are those decisions really yours, or are they designed? This channel breaks down the psychology behind everything. I'm Shrest, and this is where we decode the world.
All right, today we are diving right into a seriously dark medical mystery from the 1840s. And this is one that fundamentally changed the world, not to mention how we understand human health today. This explainer is going to take us on an unbelievable journey of discovery, of fatal arrogance, and a truth so shocking that the world literally destroyed the man who found it. We've got the data, we've got the history, and we're going to see exactly how a single brilliant mind tried to save humanity from itself. So to really get this, I want you to put yourself in the shoes of someone living in Europe during the mid-19th century. Picture this. You're going to one of the most prestigious hospitals in the world to give birth. You'd think you're in the best possible hands, right? I mean, you're surrounded by top-tier doctors and the cutting-edge medical minds of the era. But the actual reality facing pregnant women at this time was absolutely terrifying. Well, brace yourself, because you'd have up to a 1 in 3 chance of dying. And here's the truly horrifying part. These women weren't dying from complications of childbirth itself. No, they were dying from the hospital environment. They were contracting this devastating illness known back then as childbed fever. Basically, getting admitted to a major medical facility was a total roll of the dice with your life.
And that brings us to the epicenter of this nightmare, Vienna General Hospital, right in the heart of the Austrian Empire. It was here that a young, super ambitious doctor named Ignaz Semmelweis walked onto the scene. Born in Hungary in 1818, he got his medical degree and became an assistant at the obstetric clinic in 1844. He was bright, he was eager to make a difference, but he was walking directly into a death trap.
Now, what's really interesting about the data from Vienna General is this stark, undeniable contrast between their 2 maternity wards. Both wards had the exact same food, the same general conditions, the whole shebang. But Ward 1, which was run by doctors and medical students, had a catastrophic death rate from childbed fever. We're talking anywhere from 10 to 35%. But then you look at Ward 2, which was run entirely by midwives, and they had almost 0 deaths. This disparity was so widely known that poor pregnant women who literally had no other choices were begging, crying in the streets, not to be put in Ward 1. They knew it was a death sentence, they just didn't know why.
Semmelweis was kind of obsessed with solving this puzzle, but the real breakthrough actually came through a profound personal tragedy. In 1847, Semmelweis' close friend, a doctor named Jakob Kolitzka, passed away. And the cause? He was accidentally pricked by a medical student's scalpel while performing an autopsy on a corpse. Semmelweis noticed something incredibly crucial here. His friend's symptoms leading up to his death matched childbed fever perfectly. It was the exact same infection.
And boom, there was the horrific connection. See, in Ward 1, the medical students were spending their mornings down in the morgue, dissecting dead bodies to learn anatomy. And immediately after, they were walking straight up to the maternity ward to deliver babies. There was absolutely no washing, no cleaning, no sanitation whatsoever in between. Semmelweis realized these students were carrying invisible, infectious material on their bare hands, basically transferring death directly from the corpses in the morgue to the healthy, living mothers in the ward. Semmelweis had figured it out. So in 1847, he implements a solution that is honestly almost embarrassingly simple to us today. He demanded that everyone strictly wash their hands using a specific chlorinated lime solution before they were allowed to touch any patient. It was a strict, non-negotiable protocol. He essentially invented the modern concept of scrubbing in.
And the results? I mean, they were immediate. The mortality rate in Ward 1 just plummeted from over 10% down to under 1%. It was an overnight medical miracle. This really simple, data-driven act of using soap and chlorinated water proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that hundreds of lives could be saved. You would naturally assume the medical world threw him a massive parade and celebrated this breakthrough, right? Well, they didn't. Actually, instead of celebrating him, the medical establishment mocked him. They rejected his findings entirely and systematically destroyed his career. And why? Because of a terrifying implication. Think about it. If Semmelweis was right, it meant that doctors, the elite, highly respected gentlemen of 19th century society, were the ones actively killing their own patients. Their dirty hands were the murder weapons, and the medical culture of the 1840s simply could not handle that truth.
Just listen to this quote from the Science History Institute, because it hits the nail on the head regarding the intense cultural cognitive dissonance of the era. Doctors back then viewed themselves as refined gentlemen, and a gentleman's hands were by definition clean. Their immense pride, their arrogance, and these incredibly rigid cultural beliefs acted as impenetrable barriers to scientific progress. They absolutely fundamentally refused to accept responsibility for spreading this infectious material. So you have this fatal hubris building into one of the most frustrating chapters in medical history. For 14 agonizing years, Semmelweis practically begged his peers to just look at the data. He wrote these passionate, pleading letters to doctors all over Europe. He formally published his findings in 1861. But because dangerous cultural pride heavily outweighed empirical evidence, he was ignored. And as a direct result, women just kept dying, completely needlessly, for over a decade. You can probably imagine the toll this took on him. The constant rejection, the public mocking, and just the sheer weight of watching mothers die when he knew exactly how to save them, it completely broke him. By 1865, his mental health had collapsed. He became erratic, deeply depressed, and utterly consumed by his failure to change the medical establishment's mind. And that vulnerability paved the way for a devastating betrayal by his own peers. Then comes July 1865. Under the false pretense of checking out a new medical facility, a former colleague actually lures Semmelweis to a public asylum in Vienna. And once he's inside, the iron doors closed behind him. No interview, no examination, he was just locked away. When he realized he was trapped and tried to fight his way out, he was brutally beaten by the guards, forcibly restrained, and thrown into a straitjacket. Just 14 days later, he died from the wounds he sustained during that beating. But here is the absolute darkest twist of fate. The autopsy revealed that the wounds from his beating had become infected. Ignaz Semmelweis, the man who spent his entire professional life proving that unseen infections kill, died at the age of 47. From an infection. And when he was buried in a Vienna cemetery, barely anyone from the medical community even bothered to show up to his funeral. But you know, science eventually always catches up to the truth. Just a few short years after his tragic death, Louis Pasteur proved germ theory. Suddenly, this invisible material Semmelweis had been shouting about had a name: germs. Pasteur's work fully vindicated Semmelweis' data. The man they had literally locked in an asylum and beaten to death had actually discovered one of the most fundamentally important medical facts in all of human history. It's just staggering to think about the contrast between then and now. We've moved from the 1840s, this era defined by bare hands, fatal pride, and these dangerous cultural barriers, to today's world of mandated surgical scrubs, constant hand sanitizing, and strict science-driven safety protocols. Today, hand washing in hospitals isn't just a polite suggestion, it's the law. Every single time a modern surgeon scrubs in or a nurse sanitizes their hands before checking on you, they're directly honoring the legacy of Ignaz Semmelweis. And this brilliantly illustrates a much larger, honestly, kind of scary point about human nature. It's so profound they actually named a psychological concept after him. The Semmelweis reflex is our instinctual tendency to instantly reject new evidence or knowledge simply because it contradicts our established norms or beliefs. It's a 150-year-old medical lesson, but it is startlingly relevant to how we process information and protect our own egos today. Before we wrap this explainer up, I really want you to hear these haunting final words from one of his last letters. He wrote, "It weighs on my conscience that thousands upon thousands of mothers have perished, lives that could have been saved. It just reminds us that he wasn't doing this for fame. He wasn't trying to build a brand or tear down his colleagues. He was just a doctor desperately trying to get other doctors to wash their hands, and it completely broke his heart that they wouldn't." So, the crucial point is this. It's super easy for us to sit here today and judge the doctors of the 1840s for their fatal arrogance, right? But the real takeaway here isn't just a history lesson. It's a mirror. The question isn't whether the world was wrong about Ignaz Semmelweis back then. The real question is, what uncomfortable truths are we rejecting today because they challenge our pride? Who are we ignoring right now for the exact same reasons?
Power, identity, and how situations shape who we are. Subscribe.